So, Ray, tell me about Miss Shannon. Imagine me, high school senior with my church suit, white shirt, blue tie that I borrowed from my pops. Bald head, if you could believe it. No facial hair, so just the eyebrows, basically. Sitting across the table from my Morehead-Cain interview panel. This was their opening question to me. Miss Shannon had been 2 lines in my application, so my first thought was, wow, they really did read that thing. My second thought was, how much time do we have? While my answer back then was good enough to help me win the scholarship, it didn't do Miss Shannon justice. So today, I'm calling a mulligan. I grew up on a 2-lane country road in Camden, North Carolina, with a notorious curve just outside the front door. Well, notorious might be an understatement. It had tainted the driving records of folks young and old. Dozens of people in the ditch because they took that turn too fast. A lot of cars upside down in the front yard. Even claimed a few lives. And Miss Shannon was the only reason I was allowed to cross that street unaccompanied to take her to mail. See, my mama's mama died when I was real young. And Miss Shannon had served as our surrogate grandmother. But me and my 8 siblings still called her Miss Shannon. That day at the interview, I told them about her. About the mail, about the street, and about the role she played in my life. But I didn't tell them about the first time I introduced Miss Shannon to my girlfriend, Quenisha. Hey, baby. I had coached Quenisha on how to cross the street safely, so we darted across the street, rang the doorbell, walked through the screen door. Y'all know about that. A few minutes later, Miss Shannon pulled me from her tiny living room into her tiny kitchen. I didn't know what was happening. She leaned in and said, I like her. Man, you could have seen my smile from the next county over. So a few years later, the morning before my wedding day, I braved that street again to take Miss Shannon to mail. Her health wouldn't allow her to go to the wedding ceremony, but I couldn't have such a significant event without seeing her first. I walk in, she was in her favorite chair, surrounded by all those photos of her grandkids from over the years. Price is Right on the television, as usual. My goal was to just hug her neck and then make my way up to Virginia Beach for the ceremony. Miss Shannon's daughter had just brought in her breakfast of eggs and toast, so I was like, yeah, I really need to get up out the way for the food get cold. So I'm talking a mile a minute about how much I love you, Miss Shannon, and I'm going to be a great husband. And, all right, I'm going to get out the way. I'm going to let you get to your breakfast. I don't want your food to get cold. And she stopped me cold. Her voice and her hands was usually shaky from old age, but in that moment, it had all disappeared. She said, don't talk so fast. The food can wait. This is important. With the sternness and love that only a grandmother could wield, she told me that if I had any chance at all at a successful marriage, I had to be quiet. She said I needed to not talk so fast. I needed to listen. I needed to learn before feeling like I had to answer. I didn't feel like a groom to be. I was standing there like a 3rd grader, looking her in the face, but wanted to turn my head away because I felt the tears welling up. I wanted to be out that screen door across the street and hide under the bed because I had disappointed Miss Shannon. I thought that I'd always been a good listener. But in that moment, she told me I had to step my game up. And that was hard because I didn't even know where to start. So I found some help. I found this coach, and she started the relationship by telling me a story. She said, Ray, there's a man. The man has a gun. He holds up his gun and he shoots, and people are running as fast as they can away from the man with the gun. And now there's people running towards the man with the gun. Ray, what's happening? And I'm over here, my heartbeat is racing. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's a mass shooting, and what's happening? And the people are trying to get away, and now first responders are on the scene, and they're trying to protect the public. And she looks at me calmly and says, Ray, it's a track meet. At what point in the story did you make your conclusion? Information without context can be misleading. So the first lesson I learned from Miss Shannon was don't talk so fast. I needed to listen to understand, not to react or respond. But the second lesson I learned from Miss Shannon was speak up when it matters. She could have easily eaten her breakfast and went on with her day, but she let her eggs and toast get cold so she could help me be a better man. She took the time to listen, but she recognized when it was time to act. But how do we know when we need to listen versus when we need to speak? There's some inherent tension between the two, and that is exactly why it works. Take a piano. Underneath that lid, there are strings. And each of those strings is under tremendous tension. But the tension is different for each string. And that's what creates the different notes that allows the beautiful music. Cousins, we are those strings. Each of us is experiencing that tension between how we listen and how we speak. And it's important for us to stay in tune with who we are. And I've seen great examples of that already within this community. Take Steve Tobin, who you're going to hear later, who is a premier practitioner of asking open questions to get more information. And you all know David Greer, who was world class at the art of making an introduction and then stepping back and watching the magic happen. How about the fan favorite Janora McDuffie, who 9 times out of 10 is not even going to listen for the full context before she chimes in with the power of an encouraging word? What about my friend Jess Jolly, who ain't going to say too much, but you can bet she's behind the scenes working to create something incredible? After these talks today, come find me. For real, come find me. Because I've got dozens of other examples of people who are contributing to this harmonic background we know as the Morehead-Cain. And if you ever talked to me and thought I listened well, you could thank Miss Shannon for that. What's your note? That's a good one. How will you tune yourself up between what you need to hear and what you know must be said? Between listening and speaking up. Miss Shannon's not here anymore. But you are. So what now?